The Easter Island Mystery: How a Paradise Became a Graveyard of Giants. Welcome to Pages from History, where ancient mysteries come alive before your eyes. Today, we venture to the most isolated inhabited island on Earth to uncover a tragedy written in stone. This is the story of Easter Island and the curse that destroyed an entire civilization. Stay with us until the end to discover what really happened in this remote paradise. First, the island at the end of the world. The year is approximately 1200 AD, and three great double-hulled canoes cut through the endless Pacific Ocean. Inside these vessels, Polynesian voyagers search for new lands, guided only by stars and ocean swells. The navigator stands at the bow, studying the flight patterns of seabirds in the distance. His weathered face breaks into a smile as he spots the unmistakable signs of land ahead. After weeks on the open water, a triangular island emerges from the morning mist. Volcanic peaks rise dramatically from the ocean, creating a landscape unlike anything they have seen before. The canoes reach shore, where palm forests stretch endlessly across rolling hills and valleys. Freshwater streams cascade down mountainsides, while seabirds nest in numbers too great to count. The settlers step onto black volcanic sand, carrying everything needed to start a new civilization. They bring chickens, rats, taro plants, sweet potatoes, and the sacred knowledge of their ancestors. The island spans only 64 square miles, but to these voyagers it represents unlimited possibility. They name it Te Pito o Te Henua, the navel of the world, believing they have found paradise itself. Families begin clearing land for gardens using fire and stone tools passed down through generations. They construct oval houses with foundations of stone and roofs thatched with palm fronds and grass. The first generation plants crops in the rich volcanic soil, which yields abundant harvests. Children play in forests where giant palms provide materials for boats, food, rope, and shelter. Elders gather around fires telling stories of their homeland, while younger members dream of greatness. The population grows steadily as families multiply and spread across the island's three volcanic regions. Within decades, distinct clans emerge, each claiming territory around the island's perimeter. These groups compete peacefully at first, measuring prestige through fishing success and agricultural abundance. The settlers develop a unique culture, blending their Polynesian heritage with this new island environment. They carve petroglyphs into rocks depicting strange birdmen, fertility symbols, and mysterious creatures from their mythology. Second, the age of the moai builders. Around 1400 AD, a revolutionary idea transforms Rapa Nui society and sets it on an irreversible path. The chiefs and priests declare that carving massive stone ancestors will bring prosperity and protection. At Rano Raraku, the volcanic quarry, master carvers begin chipping away at the compressed volcanic ash. They use handheld basalt picks called toki to slowly release giant stone faces from the mountainside. The moai emerge from the rock with elongated heads, prominent brows, and lipless mouths frozen in eternal watchfulness. Each statue represents a deified ancestor whose mana or spiritual power will guard the living descendants. Teams of specialized workers organize into a sophisticated production system unlike anything in Polynesian culture. Carvers, transporters, engineers, and support staff all contribute to the monumental construction effort. The average moai stands 15 feet tall and weighs 14 tons, requiring months of skilled labor. But ambition grows with each completed statue, and the chiefs demand larger, more impressive monuments. Hundreds of workers drag completed moai across the island using ropes made from palm fiber. They move these giants miles from the quarry to coastal platforms called ahu, using wooden sledges and rollers. The engineers devise ingenious methods to raise the statues upright on their stone foundations. They pile rocks beneath one edge and lever the moai upward, inch by inch, until it stands tall. Once erected, artists add eyes made of white coral with pupils of red scoria, giving the statues a haunting gaze. Some moai receive massive red stone topknots called pukao, weighing several additional tons. Competition between clans drives an escalation in statue production and size beyond all practical limits. Each group strives to prove its superiority by creating taller, more elaborate monuments than its neighbors. The island's population swells to between 10 and 15,000 people, all dependent on limited resources. Every able-bodied person contributes either directly to statue production or to feeding and supporting those who do. Priests conduct elaborate ceremonies at the Ahu platforms where the moai face inland, watching over their descendants. The people believe their ancestors' stone faces bring good fortune, abundant fish, and protection from enemies. The quarry at Rano Raraku becomes a hive of activity where nearly 400 statues remain in various stages. Some stand complete awaiting transport, while others remain half-carved, still attached to the mountain's bedrock. Status and power now derive entirely from the number and size of moai a clan possesses. The old ways of measuring worth through sustainable living and harmony with nature fade into memory. Third, the seeds of destruction. By 1600 AD, the island's landscape begins showing disturbing signs that escape notice in the construction frenzy. Palm forests that once covered the hills grow noticeably thinner as trees disappear faster than they regenerate. Families need increasing amounts of timber for rollers, sledges, ropes, and scaffolding to move larger moai. They cut trees without regard for replanting because the forest seems inexhaustible and the ancestors demand monuments. The giant palms that took centuries to mature fall in days, leaving stumps scattered across denuded hillsides. Birds that nested in the canopy disappear, taking with them the seeds they once spread throughout the ecosystem. Without forest cover, the tropical rains begin washing precious topsoil down slopes into the ocean. Gardens that once yielded abundant crops produce less each season as the earth loses its fertility. The rats brought by the first settlers multiply exponentially in the absence of natural predators. They consume palm seeds before they can sprout, ensuring that cut trees have no chance of replacement. Fishermen notice that without large trees for canoe hulls, they cannot venture far into deep waters. The offshore fishing grounds that once provided protein become inaccessible, limiting the people's food sources. Clans begin fortifying their territories and posting guards as resources grow scarce and tensions rise. What began as friendly competition transforms into bitter rivalry marked by theft, sabotage, and occasional violence. The chiefs and priests ignore warning signs and demand even more statues, believing divine intervention will save them. They convince people that completing just one more moai or making it slightly larger will restore prosperity. Engineers struggle to move the increasingly massive statues across terrain stripped of the trees needed for transport. Many moai fall during transport or arrival, breaking into pieces that litter the paths between quarry and coast. Young people who never knew the green paradise their grandparents discovered inherit a world of scarcity. They hear stories of abundance while facing the daily reality of shrinking gardens and diminishing catches. The last remaining trees become objects of fierce dispute between clans desperate for any building material. Neighbors who once cooperated in communal projects now guard individual palms with weapons made of sharpened obsidian. Women spend more time searching for firewood, traveling farther each day to find scraps of fallen branches. The cooking fires that once burned bright with palm wood now smoke weakly with grass and dried shrubs. Elders watch the horizon hoping for rescue or new settlers, but the island's isolation becomes a trap. No ships arrive because Easter Island sits thousands of miles from any other land in the vast Pacific. Children grow up malnourished and stunted as the population exceeds what the degraded environment can sustainably support. The powerful chiefs still feast, while commoners subsist on increasingly meager portions of sweet potato and chicken. Fourth, the collapse of paradise. Around 1680 AD, the final catastrophic phase begins when the very last tree falls somewhere on the island. With this single event, an entire civilization loses its ability to build boats, transport statues, or escape. Famine spreads across the island as crop failures become routine on the eroded soil depleted of nutrients. Families abandon inland areas, moving toward the coast where at least they can gather shellfish and seabirds. The moai standing on their platforms now seem to mock the suffering people with their blind stone stares. Clans begin toppling rival statues in acts of rage and desperation, hoping to break their enemies' spiritual power. Warriors armed with mata, obsidian spear points, raid neighboring territories, stealing food and kidnapping women. The Ahu platforms that once hosted peaceful ceremonies become battlegrounds marked by broken statues and bloodstains. Archaeological evidence suggests that as starvation deepens, some groups resort to the ultimate taboo of cannibalism. Cave paintings from this period show haunting images of emaciated figures and violent confrontations between clans. The population crashes from its peak of 15,000 to fewer than 3,000 within a few generations. Disease, warfare, and starvation combine to create a humanitarian catastrophe with no outside help possible. Survivors retreat to caves where they hide from roaming bands and try to protect their meager food supplies. The elaborate social hierarchy collapses as chiefs lose authority and people revert to basic survival strategies. The quarry at Rano Raraku falls silent for the first time in centuries, with hundreds of unfinished statues abandoned. Tools lie scattered where workers dropped them when the society could no longer support specialized labor. Families dismantle ahu platforms using the stones to build small defensive structures and garden walls. The sacred precincts become quarries themselves as people salvage materials from the monuments their ancestors worshipped. The Birdman cult emerges as a new religion, replacing the ancestor worship that failed to prevent catastrophe. Annual competitions determine leadership based on which warrior can retrieve the first sooty tern egg from offshore islets. By 1722, when Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen arrives, he finds a barren wasteland inhabited by desperate survivors. The Europeans cannot comprehend how such an impoverished population created the massive statues scattered across the island. Roggeveen's crew record seeing only a few stunted shrubs and twisted grasses where forests once stood. The Rapa Nui people, reduced to living in caves and crude shelters, paddle out on tiny reed boats. The Europeans bring diseases against which the islanders have no immunity, adding another layer to the tragedy. Subsequent visits by Spanish, British, and other vessels further devastate the population through violence and epidemics. In the 1860s, Peruvian slave raiders capture 1,500 Rapa Nui people, transporting them to South America. Only 15 survivors eventually return home, but they bring smallpox, which kills thousands more. By 1877, the indigenous population reaches its nadir at approximately 111 individuals. An entire civilization with its unique language, customs, and knowledge base teeters on the edge of extinction. Fifth, lessons written in stone. The moai still stand today as silent witnesses to one of history's most complete societal collapses. These stone faces stare inland, no longer protecting their descendants, but warning future generations. Easter Island demonstrates how even isolated communities cannot escape the consequences of environmental destruction. The Rapa Nui had nowhere to flee when their resources vanished, making their island a closed system. The tragedy unfolded over centuries, with each generation making choices that seemed rational in the moment. No single decision doomed the civilization, but rather the accumulated effect of unsustainable practices. Competition and status-seeking drove the people to continue destructive behaviors even as warning signs appeared. The psychological investment in the moai cult made it impossible for leaders to acknowledge their mistake. Modern archaeological studies reveal that the collapse happened gradually, then suddenly, as systems reached breaking points. The last tree's fall represented not the cause, but the final symptom of decisions made decades earlier. Scientists debate whether the Rapa Nui could have saved themselves if they had stopped statue production sooner. The answer remains unclear, but the question itself highlights the difficulty of changing course before catastrophe. The story resonates today as humanity faces global environmental challenges from a similarly finite resource base. Like Easter Island, Earth is an isolated system in space with nowhere to flee if we exhaust our resources. Yet the story also demonstrates human resilience as the Rapa Nui people survived against overwhelming odds. Today, several thousand descendants live on Easter Island, keeping their ancestral language and traditions alive. Modern inhabitants have reforested parts of the island and work to protect the moai from further erosion. They balance tourism with preservation, understanding that their ancestors' mistakes contain valuable lessons. The mystery of Easter Island extends beyond the question of how statues were moved to why people continued moving them. It challenges us to examine our own monuments to progress and ask what costs we accept in their construction. Archaeologists continue uncovering new evidence about Rapa Nui society, revealing a more complex picture than simple collapse narratives. Recent studies show that some sustainable practices persisted and that the people adapted creatively to changing conditions. The curse that destroyed Easter Island was not supernatural, but environmental, created by human hands and choices. It reminds us that civilizations fall not from external conquest, but from internal decisions compounded over time. Standing before a moai today, visitors encounter not just ancient artistry, but a profound warning from the past. These stone giants ask us whether we will learn from their creators' fate or repeat their tragic mistakes. The story of Easter Island stands as one of history's most powerful cautionary tales, carved in stone and written in loss. The Rapa Nui people created artistic marvels that still captivate the world, but their legacy carries a warning we cannot afford to ignore. Their isolated island became a laboratory demonstrating how environmental destruction, unchecked competition, and the inability to change course can doom even the most ingenious civilizations. Today, we face our own moai monuments of progress built at the expense of forests, oceans, and atmosphere. The question is not whether we possess the Rapa Nui's ambition and skill, but whether we have the wisdom they lacked to step back before reaching the point of no return. If this journey through time has moved you, inspired you, or taught you something valuable, please support Pages from History by liking this video, sharing your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribing to join us on future explorations of humanity's most fascinating stories. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these important historical lessons to life. What do you think we can learn from Easter Island's tragedy? Share your perspective with our community below, and let's continue this vital conversation together.